Welcome to the podcast where we discuss all matters financial planning and investing. This content contains general information only and may not be relevant to everyone. Please contact our office to make sure and determine if this is relevant for you. Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm David Lockton. I'm joined with my co-host, Cole Eccles. How are you, Cole?
Good, thanks, Dave.
That's good. Today we're really talking about habits and 9 money habits to hopefully build your wealth and retire without running out of money. And I always find that most people are not getting to where they want to go because they really don't have a plan, but to actually get a plan to work, they've got to have the right habits. And, from a young age, we're taught different habits, whatever they may be, from, jumping a fence and then as you get older, if you're good with money or bad with money, generally those habits stick with you until you decide potentially there's going to have to be a change to be able to get better at something, to allocate money. Because when you come to finances and financial planning, generally it's got to be some sort of sacrifice. Because you have that lifestyle creep where if you earn more money, then you start
want to spend more.
Spend more. You want nicer cars, nicer houses, or eating out, or nicer clothes, or whatever. But it comes a point when, if that is your habit all the time, if you stop working, you'll probably have zero, because you've never probably spent a little bit less than you earned and put some money away at different things and built your money up over time. So I think really getting the habit, and I think what a lot of people think things don't work, so it's like, well, super doesn't work, or buying an investment property doesn't work, or the share market doesn't work. And I find a lot of the time it's people that don't work. And it comes down to their habits. And if you've got the right habits, what actually happens and you start getting results, you start getting evidence that the habits that you've started or changed or what have you starts to get a result. Because if you're putting away money into certain things, generally it works. History says that. It's like if you see someone walking down the street, a lot of the times you can tell if they go to the gym or they don't go to the gym. Or they do this or they do that or whatever. So you're actually, majority of the time, we're determined actually by our habits.
Well, and that's you say because I listened to another podcast and it's all about habits and changing from within, and it's they talk about everything is ingrained with you from birth to age 9, and you pick up your habits from your parents and all that. So if your parents are a certain way with money or doing whatever, that's what you grow up with. So you've got to change that within. And they talk about, so you said people find that things don't work, and they talk about this podcast about setting, I suppose, realistic goals or small goals. Because if you're 40 now and you retire in, say, 20 years and you need $2 million, that's a big target to hit. If things don't happen quickly, suddenly you think it doesn't work. So if you set smaller targets, that's then achievable. And they talks about willpower, and like he says, willpower doesn't exist. It's more about, because it's all about your habits. So he says if you set smaller targets, that then gives you the encouragement, and you achieve. That gives you the encouragement to keep going. But if you just set the big target and you don't achieve it, and it's failed, and you slip back into your old habits. So it's like, it's like you're right. It's not. Things don't work. It's people don't give it time or set maybe unrealistic goals to start off with.
I'm on the two sides of the realistic and unrealistic goals as well, because if we don't push hard enough, we're not excited about anything as well. So it's just such a war. I think it probably depends who you're talking to, but I find it comes to habit with automation. So if something's automatically happening, especially with your money, you can learn to live with that, where generally we were having a chat off air just before about, spending habits of different couples and different bank accounts and how all those type of things can work and how they work and all that sort of stuff. So I find really, from a planning perspective, if you've actually got a plan and then you implement the steps, which most people, it's like a lot of people have bought courses before and they've put them on the shelf and they feel like they've actually done something by buying a course.
But
they haven't done the course or implemented the course or turned up to the sessions they're supposed to and all those sorts of things. So, creating the right habits around your money, I think it's incredibly difficult because a lot of people, all the people we run into, generally they don't have really specific goals, let alone the action steps that they would need to take if they wanted to achieve those goals, which is that second phase.
But a lot of people as well, people that we see, is they'll say we spend too much money, and if we had something to work towards, we can actually be good savers, but they don't have anything. So if you take the money away from someone, I'm not saying take it away in terms of like automation, so that automaker goes away and you don't see it, then you don't sort of miss it type of thing. So it's that, I suppose, lack of direction, lack of planning, and like I said, automation. If you don't have it, you won't spend it, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to most people can control themselves. It's like, I'm terrible with food in the house. I always tell my wife off for putting junk food in there because if I know it's there,
it's gonna go.
I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
But if I know it's there, I'll go and eat it.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't buy it, I'll tell her off because she didn't buy it. So it's like, she can't win sometimes what she tells me. But at the end of the day, it's probably getting the list of things that will work for everyone's a little bit different. But I find sort of the first one we come across is paying yourself first.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, if you have some goals long term, especially around retirement planning and those type of things, if you know that you got to get so much into your super or you need to pay down a debt by so much by a certain period of time, a few basic things around your finances. And if you set that up, no matter what, you don't mess with those. So if your debt needs to go down by a certain point, don't mess with it.
Yeah.
If your super's got to go up, don't mess with it. Or you've got other investments, whatever they may be. If you pay into those things for an extended period of time,
It works.
it works. Like the end of the day, there's no guarantee, but history has shown us that paying yourself first and really getting on top of those is really important.
I think it was like with budgeting and that, and so at realistic goals, if you set yourself a budget or savings thing where you're left with almost nothing at the end of the day for yourself, that'll make it like you've got to live at the end of the day. You've got to enjoy yourself as well. And I think if that's where, say, sometimes not unrealistic, but if you go, I'm going to put all this away in savings and all that, and you do it for a month or two, and think, but I'm not really enjoying myself, and then it sort of falls over. So be realistic in that sense that you need money for yourself as well.
I always call it, there's a balance between, look, we've got to live our life now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's just so true. But also to actually hit some longer term goals, and there has to be some sort of compromise for, some sort of sacrifice. And I always talk about, probably the number two is really, what's that? Paying yourself first, avoiding sort of lifestyle creep really catches up on us. It's like, I can afford that $100 or $200. Or when you bring it, because, all the people that are selling stuff out there, they're really good at putting it down to a monthly amount. Because it's the smallest amount.
Things,
or even a daily amount if they could. But over time, you add all those little things up for a lot of people. They just cost so much money. So it's getting to a comfortable lifestyle where you are, while you're trying to accumulate. So like if you're flying business class or first class right now, but to do that you can't put the money away going forward. That's some sacrifices there, compromises, or instead of upgrading the car every 2 or 3 years. I was just speaking to my brother yesterday, and I updated the car. What for? He goes, it was 3 years old. I'm like, was there any other reason? There's nothing wrong. He goes, I actually own that one now. I've got to pay money on this one. I'm like, but as my brother says, there's not much I'm going to say about it. But it's just there's common sense. It's not so common. So the lifestyle creep is like he earns good money. He feels he can, afford different things. But once you get down the track, that's where it gets scary if you haven't built up enough money so that you will never run out of money. And it costs a lot more money. If you're going to work to 67 and you'd get the benefit of the age pension, but also you had a bit of money yourself and you wanted to live in a moderately comfortable position, most people can get there. But that's really difficult these days to work that long and that hard. And do you want to be in that position? Or would you like the other position where if you got to around 60 mark, you could choose to ease back, work, not work, and all those sorts of things. So, and probably the third one on this list is really track spending and review regularly.
I think a lot of people don't. I speak to so many people, and a few do actually like budget to the nth degree. Some people, when you ask them how much they earn, they can't even really answer that. It's like, I think it's this. So it's like, if you've got a good idea of or good understanding of what's coming in, what's going out, would stand in a good stead to understand what you can pay yourself, what goes for savings, investing, whatever. So
it's really, I think everyone's okay doing it initially, and then it's like, oh my God, does it cost us that much to live? Do you know what I mean? Like just adding up insurances these days and petrol and groceries, family of 4 a lot of times or whatever, like if you're feeding a few people, it just is bloody incredibly expensive. And most people have never sat down to actually figure out what it does cost to live.
And then when some people say, oh, no, we spend too much. And then when you go through that and they like hit you in the face, they're like, oh, geez.
Yeah, it's like a mirror looking back at you. It's like, oh my God, do I spend that much? Or does it cost me this much to live? And it's like, it's frightening. And especially with the amount of tax and so forth that we pay, and that becomes a third of generally anyone's money as well. So, and then we've got probably number 4 is to stay on that list is really invest consistently.
I think it's, yeah. So again, go back to my podcast about habits and that, and they keep going about that is about consistency is the key. And it's just anything. It's like, it's with, use an example of the gym. It's like going to the gym. It's if you consistently like, and all these fit influencers will tell you as well, the key to results is consistency. It's not going to happen overnight. It might happen for 6 months. If you keep doing the little things over a period of time, it's going to get you there.
Yeah, I always find it being consistent in in investment, even when it's really hard. When you could have started investing and your investments have gone against you, and it's just really human nature to say, right, let's get out of this investment. It's we're doing the wrong thing, and then all of a sudden you get that that shit. Then you got out of it a few years later, it gone up, and it would have made all this money, and it's all the missed out. So generally, if you're very consistent with your investments, you're not really going to know if they work for 10, 15, 20 years. It's like most people who are the millionaires, they weren't millionaires overnight, in their 20s or whatever. It took them over a lifetime to get to a position to go, oh, actually.
And how many times you see those things? If you invested in Coke shares $100, 40 years ago, you'd be worth, I don't know how many millions now. It's just over time things happen. So
being consistent, probably, starting out and making sure you get to a position where you're consistently doing something and doing it for a long enough period of time will help you get there. And that comes down to number 5, avoiding the bad debt. What do you see happens around the whole bad debt?
A lot of times it's vehicles, cars. A lot of time people go into, I saw something the other day as well. So they've bought a new car, they've got a loan, they've refinanced their home, and they've bundled the car debt into their home loan, and their payments have gone down. And that's right, you've now saved money, but now you're paying your $40,000 car over 30 years instead of 3 years or 5 years, whatever it is. So that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Unless you,
the end of the day, non-deductible debt, things you can't claim and that keep costing you money. That the creep about what you're mentioning there is keep putting assets, could be holidays, could be a new pool. It's always something. And then the home loan actually never gets paid out ever. And it's sort of, it might have started at 3 or 4 or 500,000. It's still 3, 4, 500,000 because
15 years later,
your equity grew, you borrowed some more money, and you just kept on that hamster wheel of never having an actual plan to pay it off. So it's for all those things, and that comes down to controlling your money over time. Because once you get to retirement, in an ideal world, you're trying to have no debt. That's that. Unless it's investment debt, that's a different type of debt. And you want a bunch of assets that are built up to a certain amount of money, so that can provide the income that you're actually after. So the debt trap on things that cars are number one. Everyone thinks, I needed that car. I'm sure you did. Of course you did. I agree with you, right? But there's other ways around it. So
credit cards a big one, obviously.
Yeah, credit cards,
massive interest rates.
And that comes to sort of the next one. Number 6 is having a rainy day fund, or I always like to have amount of money set aside that, if something went wrong, I don't want to feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately in Australia, there's so many people that do. And that's building up, whether that's 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, whatever it is, that you have access to money
quickly,
so you don't feel poor.
And you can draw in quickly, like I said, for an emergency or rainy day.
As a rainy day, anything can happen. You need some time off that you didn't plan. Something happened to you didn't plan. Life will throw lots of different things at us, and just knowing from a safety perspective that we've got some money there to draw to draw on is really, really important. And I think probably the next point, number 7, is really keep learning about money. I think a lot of people, they get to a position where they know small parts of the puzzle, but it is very complex if you're not in a financial planner or been in that industry. There's a lot of terminology, and you don't want to look dumb or feel like you could have been doing a lot better. So educating yourselves around podcasts. There's a lot of free information out there, but you don't know what you don't know. Do you know what I mean? So you can just make better. I feel if you're more educated around money, you can make better informed decisions and still get the experts in specific areas to really help you. But it just comes down to this. It's such a minefield out there, and it's like I say to anyone, like, I wish I knew what I knew now. Like, I'm 51 years old, right? Nearly 52. But I wish I knew what I knew now 15 years ago. I would have done things so much different. And, that goes on probably for the next 10 years or 15 years or whatever. But as long as you are making moves, you are doing, certain things, most of us will be fine just doing the basics.
I think it's like, when we say learning, educating yourself is about, because there's like you said, a lot of information out there, and sometimes it's too much and you don't do, because you get conflicting things, or you there's too much like information overload, and you end up doing nothing, and that inertia and do nothing. So but I think learning the basics, like about budgeting, and there's a lot of information out there and books and that about that would help you. Things like investing and that, obviously, you like you said, understand terminology, understanding the general principles and that, but don't be trying to become an expert. But certainly know become an expert if you want to. But certainly get to know the basics. So
I think there's such a fear thing around money in general. Like if you make the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and so there's. That's why there's a lot of, when there's the spruikers that get out there on the internet and so forth and really push certain things, people don't know if it's good or bad, but they're drawn to the end goal, which they think is going to be so good, they're willing to risk a lot. And that's what happens a lot with, the overseas scams and all that sort of stuff. They just promise these returns that are just out of this world, and people just really lose sight of like, actually, is this real or not? Do you know what I mean? So just to understanding and keep learning about money. And probably number 8 is plan for longevity these days.
Well, a lot of people are living longer,
We're living longer because the health system's better. Generally especially a lot younger generation are looking after themselves probably a lot better, in history. And that's, progressing. Just go another 20 or 30 or 40 years from now. The breakthroughs in medicine we've had now are awesome. And that's just going to keep continuing. So you're going to have more and more people getting to their 90s or hitting 100, where, the average lifespan for male and females at the moment is in the 80s, right? So, getting to that point, if you're not working from 60 is quite a long time. If it gets out to the average age of 90, then all of a sudden, and you wanted to retire around the 60 mark, that's 30 years of money.
And people don't think, some people don't think about that and say, I'm going to retire. I mean, it's like, so you realise that that's going to be like, depending on what age it is, say 55, that's 35 to 40 years that you're going to be funding yourself. That's almost as long as you've been on the planet now. So it's, It's, I think the government, like that was something that was identified a few years ago, and there's a lot of innovation around retirement products and that to help with that longevity, because, everyone's retiring and planning for that 85, 87. That's what we say to clients, always look at what's longevity like in your family, because if your grandparents lived to they were 110 and your parents were, it's like, well, it's in your genes that you may be living long as well.
Absolutely. Like my nans were into their 90s, both of them around 94. Unfortunately, the guys went a little bit earlier, so I'm a bit worried about that. But at the end of the day, we want to get to that position where we're not relying on handouts totally. And the age pension in Australia kicks in when you're 67, so obviously that's going to help you way down the track as well. But if you want it a little bit nicer and those sorts of things, you want to make sure you're looking out.
I suppose the key is when you're planning for retirement, it's not planning to have an amount of money that's going to give you the income you want, and it's all going to run out by 87, and you think your retirement is funded, is always aim, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, beyond that.
Even the ones we do, once you're in your 80s, you are spending a lot less.
Yeah.
That's just reality. I've got clients in their 80s and lovely people, but they're not capable of spending their money.
Not going on holidays.
So having a modest amount of money at that period of time for most people is going to be okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. So, you're most active in your 60s, 70s. Then when you get into your 80s, obviously things slow down. And I haven't seen too many fit and able 90-year-olds. We'll see. That may be the new thing. And number 9 in it is get some professional help early.
Well, I think what was the first point? I think it was about time or consistency. And it's the earlier you start, it's just like I was doing something for a younger client that's joined up and just come on board, and you're looking at just putting in a little extra amount of money. He's only 25, and just over the next 35 years, it's not even $100 a week extra into super. It's actually less than about half of that. It could end up to over $400,000, nearly $500,000 extra over 35 years. So start early, small things, a long time is going to make big potential to have big or significant impact down the line.
Down the track. And I think, for me, getting advice early or getting a financial planner on your side, it's about the coaching, implementation, like the strategies. Like initially when we deal with clients, it's like, this is what we're trying to get to. These are all the strategies, which is foreign to a lot of people. And then, but one of the biggest things we do is actually make sure that people do
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
control their money, put the money into the things, and if not, why not? And then, okay, do we need to adjust, keep on track? And I think it's keeping people accountable to what they really want as well. So it's really easy to get distracted and, go off track and end up blowing the money. Oh, well, I'll worry about it tomorrow and all those type of things.
Yeah.
But even, those things do happen, but it's just having someone on your side to continuously say, hey, this is what we need to do now, revisiting every 3 months or every 6 months or every 12 months and whatever the relationship is. It's getting advice, but it's also getting someone to help you, keep you on track even when you fall off.
Yeah.
Because you will fall off.
Yeah,
no one's perfect.
Yeah.
And when it comes to money, it's like just getting back on that track. All right, let's get it going again and building and building. And over a long period of time, you'll go a lot further with help than without it.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. It doesn't really matter in what area you're in. And one of the good things about advice is that there's a lot of ways you can pay for advice and get help without really hurting your hip pocket.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you way down the track generally with a lot more money. So getting someone on your side, whether that's these days there's a lot of coaching out there. And I know when I was young, I'll say in my 30s when I was young, I didn't know what financial planners done, how they could help me, and everything about it until I obviously started learning about the profession and so forth. And what I found, and even just in my own, it's like trying to plan yourself is very difficult.
Yeah. You've got, everything, like even the books you read and that, it's all the really wealthy people, successful people in business have always had a mentor or someone to work with them. And so always say, surround yourself with people that know more than you and will help you progress.
Yeah, and if you're the smartest person in the room, unless that's you got zillions of dollars, it's not going to be that helpful on that particular journey. So you want some people to help you around who are getting results. Who we've got over 300 clients now that are moving along quite nicely. Majority of them is never perfect, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is the amount of success most people have, and I'd speak whether it's us, whether it's a lot of other financial planning firms as well. A lot of people get incredible results by implementing the steps, and they've just had someone to really simplify. Look, this is what you need to do. That's what I do with all my clients. Like, this is all you need to focus on, even though everything I've told you is so complicated. This is all you need to do, right? Do this for me, this for me, this for me. And we actually sort all the rest out where, all the paperwork, all the headaches, all the changing of different scenarios, people can get lost in, that's just so hard.
That's when they stop doing things.
100%. They stop doing it. At the end of the day, bring it back to the money habit you really need to do is sort of back on that first area is just control it. If you're allocating, once you know where the money needs to go to help you get to wherever that may be, wherever you want to get to, and what's in your resources or capability to do, is allocating that money to those areas for a long, extended period of time that it can actually get a result. And then, over time, I just find that creating the habits, once you get reinforcement, this is working, and it generally takes time, you'll stick on and continue with it and get the result you're actually after.
I think I want to go back to the point about unrealistic goals is when you're looking, especially something long-term, paying for debt or same retirement, is if you break those goals up into small things, like in 6 months I want to get to this point, and then you get there because that gives you, and you achieve that gives you the confidence, gives you the incentive to keep going because you're achieving that. But if you say, I'm going to pay my house in 15 years and after 6 months, I've paid off $12,000, it's like, let's break it up into little things.
You've got to break it up. And one thing I love about sort of the review scenario that we go through is looking at where people were a year ago to where they are now. Generally, it's 100,000 plus moving forwards, and that can be a combination of moving debt down and moving invest forwards and all that. And then you've got more the extreme clients who make $1 million difference over a year, and everything between. Like very common for us is someone going forward a couple $100,000. Do you know what I mean? But without getting the help of doing A, B, and C, they never would have done it. Right. And even people just starting out, it's just amazing, and that's working out. So that's what I like to do. How much did the debt go down? How much did, let's say, your investments went up? And overall, what is your net worth today in 12 months' time to where it was a year ago? And that really keeps people on track. And even with the debt, because generally it's a long-term thing to pay some debt off, seeing that coming down every year, and that makes you feel good and just keeps you happening. If your investments are going that way and your debt's going that way, I call it stretching the gap. Life's good. But if you're going flat line, life's not so good. It's like, am I ever going to be able to afford anything? And am I doing the wrong thing? And all those things come in. And then the desperation can kick in to do something silly.
Yeah.
You know,
to find that quick win or, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it all just comes back to actually understanding what do I need to do, create the habit to do that, create the automation to support that, and try not to mess with it too much. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, that's all for today. If anyone needs any help on, anything we've talked about today, please feel free to reach out. If you find this podcast valuable, please share it with your friends. And look forward to chatting with you soon.